I'm going to do a review, not necessarily a quick one, on the Arashi rear sets. This is specific to my 2005 Honda CBR 600RR. I did have a week off work, and I understand that for myself, idle hands and having nothing to do does get me into trouble, so I took a gamble on this kit. It's fairly inexpensive. It was 200 Canadian loonies to purchase, and it arrived to my door from China in a little bit over a week. So I went ahead and I installed this kit from start to finish. Took about 8 hours because there are no clear instructions, and it's kind of figure it out as you go. There are some areas of sensitive adjustment that need to be taken into consideration because it is a quote-unquote adjustable kit, but there are no specific instructions for that. So let me break down what comes with the kit, the components, and then we'll get into specifics for each side. So the kit comes with assemblies for both sides of the bike. This one specifically is the shifter. Now there are parts that are common to each side and one part that makes it unique. So the first part is this mounting bracket, which fixes directly to your frame. There are 2 mounting bolts, and then over here there are 4 upper adjustment bolts or threads, and then 4 lower adjustment threads so that you can move the position of your assembly around. The intermediate plate, which we'll call it the lever plate, fixes to your main plate, and then everything else bolts on from there. The third piece that's common to both sides is the heel plate. The heel plate bolts onto your lever plate and keeps your foot from going into moving components. It's supposed to protect your foot and components of the bike. Now the fourth piece that makes each side unique will be the accessory bracket. And for here, it's this pivot arm that connects this long shift lever to your lever bracket, and then up here to the shift arm and shift rod of your bike. So this is what makes it unique to this side. So here's the components that come with the kit. There are 4 main ones, 3 that are common to both sides, and then an accessory bracket that goes on each side. So the first piece is going to be the main mounting plate. These fix directly to your frame using the OEM bolt holes. On there are 4 adjustment points, top and bottom, for your lever assembly to bolt into. This is what makes the kit somewhat adjustable. You can choose any of these holes, and then from there, a heel plate bolts onto both sides to keep your feet out of the moving components. And then the piece that's unique to each side is here on the shifter side. This is the pivot arm that allows you to switch from standard shift to GP style shift. It connects to your shift arm and your shift drum, or your shift, I guess that's your shift drum inside the transmission, and links that to your foot control over here. The accessory plate on the braking side is this bracket right here. And using these 2 bolt holes on the outside, your brake master cylinder attaches to that. So in order to make this kit work and look proper, what I'm doing is using the rear lower bolt hole and the forward upper bolt hole. If you don't do this, then the lever assembly kind of sits canted backwards and it doesn't look proper. And in order to achieve this, what I've done is taken the main plates or the lever assemblies, and I've drilled out the center of them so that there's a little bit of play in the bracket. But when I get down and I show you the actual assemblies, you'll see that you can't see it from the surface because of the head of the bolt. The head of the bolt is what really controls the position of all of this. So there's your four main components: your main plate on both sides, your lever assembly, your heel plate, and then your accessory components for both sides. So the shifter side, I believed, would be the most difficult, or the more difficult of the two to get installed because of the number of moving components that had to be fine adjusted. I was incorrect, but we'll talk about that on the other side. So a couple things that need to be noted for both sides. My real concerns overall in the components of this, the kit, start at the cheapest points. Relative to cost to create a bracket that mounts to, or your shift rods, the cheapest components to purchase are going to be your fasteners. And these fasteners, I'm fairly certain, are made out of recycled, not even recycled, just crushed pop cans, because the invoice says that you have to thread lock all of the screws. And I've done that. I've put blue Loctite on everything that has threads on this kit so that they don't back out as you would for something that's going to be in a high demand situation. So after 2 rides, when I came back, just out of curiosity, I gave this a little twist to see if it was still tight, and it was not. So I backed the bolt out, cleaned the sealant out of the threads in the frame, and I cleaned the sealant off the bolt. But when I got a better look at the threads, they're marred. They are stretched and distorted, and that's on the largest bolt after 2 rides. So if these are the only 2 things that really connect your entire assembly to the motorcycle and allow you to stay upright on it, those components were cheaped out, then everything else was cheaped out on. And that's why the kit cost just under 200 Canadian loonies. So it was kind of a low risk piece for me. I knew I wanted rear sets on the bike, and I do have good quality pieces on order, but you can't appreciate the quality of something if you haven't gone to the other side of the spectrum and purchased the garbage. So I purchased some garbage. So I have a little bit of comparison to go on. Now, as brand new, with everything adjusted the way it needs to be, the shifting is crisp. Everything feels good. But if this was cheaped out on, and these bearing heads are cheap, which they are, and I'll show you on the other end up here, they're white metal. They're going to fail. If those are cheaped out on, everything else has been cheaped out on. And the safety of your machine, yourself, other people on the track or on public roads, it's really just a ticking time bomb. So if you're going to make this, if you're really going to give this an honest go, replace all of your fasteners and your bearing heads on this side at minimum. So here's a concern with the bearing head. If you keep an eye right here, once it focuses again, come on. There we go. If you watch right here, I'm going to grab this rod and give it a little wiggle. See that lateral play in there? I can see it and I can hear it, even though there's a helicopter flying over top of my garage right now. Motorcycles, specifically sport bikes and super sports, they create a resonance based on engine speed and RPM and whatever gear you're in. That resonance creates vibration, vibration creates movement, and movement creates wear. And that bearing head, those bearing heads are going to fail. Now, even though they are white metal and they're cheap, they're not getting a twisting or pulling force on them. Everything is directional. When you operate the shift lever, it's a very linear force applied here, which turns this bracket. You know, if you're here watching this, you understand how shifting works, but you can see it's all a very linear force applied to these rods. I think the rods are going to be okay, and really the bearing heads could be okay, but it does vibrate. I can hear it at certain RPMs, and it makes me crazy. So if I was going to put stock in this kit, I would replace all of those things, because threads should not stretch after 2 uses, especially not the thickest ones in the kit, which are the 2 only points that connect everything to your bike. There is a large bolt that goes through here to the adjustable toe lever. You can potentially adjust the arm here on the bottom, but you see how many of these threads that I have exposed on the adjustment arms? If I were to try and use this top hole, then the position of this is going to come way up, which defeats the purpose. The position it's in right now, being adjustable, is that I don't have to lift my foot, my toes, or push my toes down. I sit naturally on this peg. So the way it is now is good, but this kit is not adjustable. There's also a large bolt that travels from here through this foot peg, white metal. If that fails, you have no more foot peg. There are bolts that go through the backside for whatever ungodly reason. And if this fails or comes loose because the threads get stretched, now you have to disassemble the kit to make adjustments here. So if you're gonna make this stick and you're gonna try and make it a thing, you need to replace all of the fasteners after you've adjusted the kit's position with the supplied bits. So know that you're going to be on the hook for that. So anyhow, that is the shift side. Actually, here's one more thing that I had to do in order to make this side work in this configuration. Down inside of here, there are 2 washers right here that space out the bearing head from this pivot arm. Without 2 bearing or 2 washers in here, this bearing head bites on whatever lip this is. And you can't actually move the shift lever. So you need a couple washers in the back there to space everything out, which took me a while to figure out, but that's not included in the instructions anywhere, and it should be. So anyhow, that is the shift lever side of the Arashi rear set kit for this bike. On to the brake side. So here we are on the brake side of the kit. Again, the components are all there, no real change. The accessory bracket is right here, and that's where your rear master mounts. Now, all of the problems on this side arise from that rear master and its position where it is mounted. You can see that there are some slot holes here, so the company can lay claims to say that this kit is adjustable. However, the rear master is mounted too high, in my opinion. And here are the problems that it creates. The first is this: the angle at which your brake line comes out. This kit is designed to be bolt-on, meaning it can be used with factory components. My factory brake line cracked right here after 2 rides, and it was wet. You could see that there was oil coming out of it. It had not yet broken, but it had grown tired. Maybe that's because the lines were potentially 18 years old. I don't know if the previous owners replaced those, but I replaced it with this Galfer line, front and rear, because this is just a smidge longer than the factory lines. So it gives me some flexibility there, but at maximum suspension travel, when you extend it, there's potential that it could have snapped my factory line. So I did replace it, and I have alleviated this problem and the braking problem in future. The next problem is, and this is a big one, is this reservoir supply line right here. If you're using it in factory form, the way a kit is supposed to be bolt-on and used, then this line is too long and it was resting on the hot exhaust. You can see the gap that I've created here right now, and I've done that by going to a local shop and purchasing another brake mass or a reservoir and line. So here's the reservoir that I did buy, and this is the line, and I've cut it to fit this application. And to give you some comparison, here is, we're just gonna like put it in front. Here's the one that was on the bike. And you can see just how far that line would sit down when properly adjusted and mounted in place. So in order to make the factory line work without cutting it, I had to run a zip tie here, and then I had to fold this line, almost kink it, and then zip tie it around here to prevent it from resting on the exhaust. Now, that creates a problem, because if you burn through this hose, which it doesn't get hot now, but if it was resting on the exhaust or the heat shield, which it would have, and it did, and I don't have the heat shield on there right now because it takes up too much space, you melt through this hose, and now you have a slow leak of fluid down onto your tire, onto the road, onto the track, and that's a slipping hazard. That's a slipping hazard for somebody. It's a low side waiting to happen, and that's not an acceptable risk. The next piece that is of concern is when you're judging your corner entry and you're setting your body position to manage that corner. When you place your toes on the peg and you rest your heel on the components or up into the heel plate, this piece here is exposed. Now I'm using a pointer to describe this, so you can't really see it, but what I'll do is grab my boot, and here is kind of how my foot would be positioned for a corner entry. It's sitting up awful high. It actually should be back like this, but my foot is going to push on this sensitive plastic piece here on the rear master. If you break that piece because your foot is not, or this master is not being protected, then that's a lot of fluid dumping out of your rear master, potentially down onto the hot exhaust. And while I'm not a scientist, hot oil or oil on a hot exhaust, that can create flames. If you dump enough of this fluid onto your tire, that's a low side. That's a danger for your machine, yourself, everybody on public roads, and any other rider that's on the track who's going flat out expecting that the track is in good conditions. And you're not going to notice this leak because it's going to be behind you. So I have spoken to the company about my concerns, why I feel this product is unsafe in its advertised state. And we have been discussion, but that's another point of this to go for another segment of this. But if you're going to make this side work and you really want to give it a go, again, with replacing the fasteners, you require either a rear reservoir delete or a new hose that you can cut down. Replace your rear brake line with something stainless that has a little more strength to it. And another piece you could potentially do, because here's something here. This is the bracket for your OEM brake light switch. I had to flatten this in a vise and then bend it to get this switch as close to the plate as I could, because the end of this was resting right on the exhaust. So I bent it and made it work. Now you can alleviate this brake light switch by spending 20 more Canadian loonies and getting a hydraulic brake light switch. It replaces the banjo bolt that goes in here, and it has two pigtails that come out. These are required for most rear sets, and it gets rid of a cheap plastic component. Spend the 20 bucks, replace it, cut the connectors off the end, cut your factory wire as low as you can, and connect the OEM connector to it so that you can still maintain your brake light. And now you don't have to adjust the threaded body on this every time you move the position of your foot peg. So those are the three things that I think you need to make the brake side specific work. Hydraulic pressure switch, replacing this hose, and replacing your stainless or your brake line with something a little bit longer. So I did take a gamble on this kit, and it didn't pay off in the long run. Here's the instruction on the invoice that says, please thread lock everything and contact us immediately if you have problems with your orders. I did this. I voiced my concerns directly to the company, and I did request a full refund for this product because of the safety concerns. And I kind of came in high. We both acknowledged that the kit has been installed and it was shipped from China. So we both acknowledged that it couldn't be resold and it wasn't financially economical to ship a product back to China. And that's why I came in with the high request of a full refund, expecting that they would give me a little bit less. We did discuss the safety concerns, and the company did provide me pictures. I did ask for their help on maybe I've installed something wrong on the brake side, that it's not working properly. Please help me. They provided pictures of a CBR 1000, which you can see here the kit is designed for. And that CBR 1000 was running the hydraulic brake switch. It was running an aftermarket reservoir that was relocated. So the company did try to help, but the product or the direction that they provided had nothing to do with being a bolt-on kit. So I did give them that option. In discussion, I did express to them that this shift side does work well. In its configuration, it could work really well if there were better instructions and the fasteners were better quality. So that was probably my mistake in saying that I am kind of pleased with this kit. So that's when they offered a partial refund. And my rebuttal to that was, well then, how about a 50% refund? Because I am slightly less than half happy with the kit, but I can't use half a kit. And it's going to come off my bike. To that, they said, well, we can give you $50 refund at maximum, and even then, that is not financially advantageous to us. So now I have a kit that, yes, I did take a risk on, but the customer service from Arashi, understanding that their product sucks, it is unusable, and there are glaring safety concerns with the kit, in my opinion. I think a rubber hose resting on a hot exhaust is definitely a safety concern. And companies that do the research and development, like Woodcraft and Vortex and any other ones, those are not concerns with the kit. So now I am out the cost with some research, but I can't appreciate the quality that's going to come with my Vortex kit unless I have explored the hot garbage option. And in my opinion, Arashi is a hot garbage option. However, if you're willing to put in new fasteners and time and always check the status of your bolt tension, you could make this work. But it is a powder keg, and these components are going to fail in time. So in closing this out, of the kit installed on my 2003 plus Honda CBR 600RR, the Arashi kit is garbage. Save your money, and if you're going to go forward with this anyhow, I hope that some of the things I've noted in here will help you with your installation and make your life a lot less painful than mine has been. So thank you for your time, and keep those rubber bits down.